Oh. Thank you for joining us for our open air hangout, and let the shenanigans begin. Skip, are you there? I see
I
you're.
am. I am here.
Okay. How are you?
I was about to take a nap.
Oh, well.
You thought we'd help you fall asleep? Is that what you're...
No, no. Look, I answered it, and I was like, "Well, that's the end of my nap."
Oh.
Wake up call.
I dialed him in.
You know, Skip, just put yourself in mute, and we'll talk. You'll fall asleep like a baby.
No way. I'm gonna hang up. Can you call me back, Crystal, so I can talk to you on my computer?
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. Well. Sorry, I had to turn my computer off. I took my retainer out, and I got to put it back in.
It's a noble reason to.
Gotta admit that I appreciate that you shut the camera down for that.
That's not gross. Oh my God.
So Scott, what's up with Dana having flooding in his basement?
Did he have more of it?
Well, that's why he had to come on late a little while ago.
Oh, I don't know. I missed that. His basement's got challenges. They must be having a lot of rain in Minnesota.
Okay, that's what.
I get in the springtime they had a huge rainstorm. It like rained for a really long period of time and really heavy.
Yeah.
And he spent like a day and a half like soaking up water out of the basement. Their basement's unfinished, but it really comes pouring in, and so yeah, I missed that coming on later in the hiccup or something. So yeah, bummer.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been having a lot of basement issues.
Yeah, that's I think he was hoping that the one time was just like that it was just the product of so heavy rain for so long, but if it's happening again, that's a bummer.
Mm.
And it depends on what part of the country you're from. I have friends who live in Iowa, right off I think it's the Missouri River. No, it's maybe Mississippi River. But they have to, like, their house is built to flood. They just have to. Like the basement. Literally everything in the basement's like, even like the basement furniture and all of it can be like lifted up and stored in a box, and it's got like you can flood for like 5 feet, so you may have to adjust. Jeanette, I wanted to know what you thought about that last session. We ran out of time, and the whole time I wanted to say, like, Jeanette, what did you think of all that? Oh, look at this squishy face.
I'm going to be honest and say it was a lot for me today. I'm having a hard time showing up today. I listened. I'm interested in going back and watching again and checking out the links because the links weren't live. Like, I couldn't...
None of the links worked.
No. You couldn't click on the link and go to the thing you were talking about.
Oh, because I was on the screen share instead of opening the presentation, the links don't work.
And, I'm a clicker. Like, if I'm going to be... I need to be active. So,
yeah. Okay, that's a good... I should have put them in the links in the chat or something so people could click them.
But, I found it very interesting, and I enjoyed hearing what everybody else had to say about it. But it's a session that I'm going to definitely go back and watch to kind of pull out from the threads because, yeah, just having a challenging time showing up this morning.
Oh, good. Crystal, the link to the actual presentation made it onto the event page so that when folks are watching, the links all work there. Okay.
Yeah, it went on earlier this morning.
Okay.
But the Dana and them were having issues because they were watching the presentation in a separate screen, but she ended up fixing them towards the end. She was able to get the links.
Okay. All right. Skip, how is it with you today, sir?
It's going well. I finished processing the images that I shot a couple days ago. I'm working on a skills resume. About it, man. How about y'all?
I think I'm doing better than Jeanette, it sounds like. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, Jeanette wasn't able to click, and I know that's a terrible thing. Can't click.
The whole internet collapsed if you can't click.
Yeah, like what do you expect me to do? I can't
I
click.
I know. I panicked a couple of times. That's why my controller was up.
There's a link. It won't let me click it. It's like one of those like human experiments. Like just how many times will you push the click?
Several, until I realized that you weren't running the presentation. You were screen sharing.
That's funny.
Football comes on tonight.
What's that?
Football comes on tonight.
That's a true story.
Thank God.
Who are you rooting for, Skip? You got an A team, or you like playing fantasy ball, or what?
Dude, he's a Patriots diehard.
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that. That's a good team to root for.
Yeah.
But they're getting rid of all of his favorite players. So how you handling that?
In Bill we trust, man.
The Patriot way.
Yeah, that's it. You know, like I think I know I talked with Jonah about it. You know, for an extended amount of time. I might have talked to Jeanette about it too, but like I read the Belichick books and all of that stuff. Like I think it's a great way to understand leadership and team building. Like, because they've been successful for so long. Like, so just looking at it you don't get committed to one person or to one strategy. You look at what the market dictates and you respond to it. And I think that's a great way to look at doing the work. Like, what should we be doing, and can we learn the skills necessary to adjust and to do those things? Now, I don't think it's a good thing to be so cold, but in a results-based business like that, I mean, how else can you be? You can't base today's decisions off of what happened 3 years ago. Like, you just kind of have to adjust and be willing to move. So
That's a good point. You know, there was an article recently about the Spurs and why the Spurs business decisions make them the NBA's best franchise.
Yep.
And certainly the Patriots are consistently making business decisions, like you said, market analysis with coaches, with their general manager. So with that in mind, you know, it can definitely add structure and consistency to an organization. Actually,
I was just helping you out on the side.
That Spurs news article.
Oh, Beth's provoking you, Skip. I don't know if you can see the chat.
no. Oh, what?
She says, "Isn't Belichick person?" Well, she can say it for herself. Beth, you say hi to Skip.
Hi, Skip. So I came in on your comment about Bill Belichick, and I'm like, but my first reaction was, well, isn't he an ass though? And so that's not a good leadership model. You know, so the personality issues, wouldn't Tony Dungy be a better model for sort of, and he's written some books too, and he's sort of been able to be a leader in difficult circumstances, because I lived in Tampa when he was in Tampa Bay, with a group of challenging guys, but yet he's been able to, you know, maintain a persona that's a whole lot different and a whole lot more accessible than Belichick has.
So
Does his personality really matter?
Exactly.
Yes, it really does.
Not when it comes to football, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
No.
And I think I will even be willing to go even further to say that I think personality matters when all things are equal.
Huh.
Like, so if Jeanette originally was kind of difficult to get a hold of and learning how to get a grasp and a good read on, right? But when you ain't got 6-hour delays and your travel is real smooth, well, Jeanette can be a little Jeanette. Like, my travel works.
Thanks, Skip.
You know, like so.
Way to bring it real, Skip.
Like so Jeanette can be whatever she wants to be if the travel works. When the travel stops working, Jeanette needs to be nice. But as long as that other stuff working, I don't know. Belichick has 3 Super Bowl wins, 5 Super Bowl appearances. I can name 2 plays that he should be 5-0 in Super Bowls. And they have won consistently in a way that no other team has won under his leadership. So we can say that maybe we like Dungy more, and that's great. But in football, it's about wins and losses. And in community, it's about, is the community moving forward? And if the community is progressing, if things are improving, you know.
That don't have to be pleasant.
Yeah. Like,
I'll take Tony Dungy's record any old day, as far as wins and losses are concerned. And
there's more than one way to win, though. There's more than one formula to winning.
Indeed, and you don't always have control over those circumstances that you were talking about being equal, right? So, you know, Jeanette couldn't predict that there was going to be a storm in the Midwest and you were going to get stuck sleeping on those little hard chairs at Midway for 2 days. You know, that's not her fault. She couldn't control for that. So it's like when we're being responsive to the environment, then our personality comes into play in fostering the leadership that we need in progressive movements. So that's just my 2 cents to connect to the conversation.
And luckily, I am happy enough to say that you have a right to think that way. Because everybody has a right to be wrong.
Oh, man. I'm reading Reinhold Niebuhr. I don't know if anybody knows this old dead white guy, but as old dead white guys go, one of the more interesting things to read in the world. And I'm reading Moral Man.
Society.
I'm reading Moral Man, Immoral Society. And
I'm starting that tomorrow.
Man, so the part where it fits in this conversation is real interesting to me. So in the book, he calls out John Dewey and what he calls the liberal, I'm going to get the words wrong, but he basically kind of calls out like liberal dreamers. He basically says that they're socially idealistic in a way that's not helpful, and he tries to push at this edge of like the fine edge between cynicism and realism, and how differences between individual personalities and morals and ethics, in which I think for this conversation he'd say it's good to be, you know, there's strength in being kind of nice and compassionate and thoughtful, but says that as you move out into groups and into society, like we have to be more cold, more cynical, more realistic. And in my brain, I think about like Buddhist teaching practice, and that part of one of the signs of like growth in Buddhism is that you actually become a little grumpier because you become more honest about the full range of feelings. You become more honest about what's going on. And then he writes a lot about this edge between kind of cynicism and realism. Well, when you think about these two kind of football folks, like, you have both of them being successful, and I'm not saying that Tony Dungy's unrealistic, but they're, yeah, exactly. I'm explaining why I'm grumpy sometimes. I'm calling that growth. My wife's like, "Why are you grumpier?" And I said, "I think I'm healthier, but because I'm not trying to overplease all the time." There's this interesting intersection between these two things, right? And who Bill Belichick is as a human and who he comes off as a football coach to the media may not be the same. They both are incredibly successful, but how we think about what makes for our own growth as leaders or for organizations, like this interesting gap between how we show up in a really nice way versus a realistic way is interesting to me. I tried to weave like 12 things together in that effort.
It worked.
And well done, too.
Oh, thank you. Ooh, we got records going down now.
Facts.
So,
Yeah.
So I was thinking about the conversations that we've been engaged in around what's going on in Ferguson with the cynicism and realism question. And I'm a fan of Reinhold, by the way, Reinhold Niebuhr. So I don't know philosophers, if they keep records on philosophers like they do on football coaches, but Reinhold was pretty darn successful in terms of being a modern philosopher and theologian. But yeah, I mean, I think when you start talking about some of the folks who have the who are trying to either quell the protest, redirect the energy, talk about whether we should engage in, democratic process and political struggle in the ways that we're used to versus something more radical and revolutionary, then I think you hit that edge, right? Between, what's cynical, that the democratic process is slow and it's cumbersome, and we got to register all the people who hadn't been voting, then get them to vote, then get them to, change leadership, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all that process that's engaged. And, cynicism could either say, that's never going to work. We just need an armed rebellion. Or realism could say that's the only choice we have, and that's the best and safest avenue that we have for everyone concerned. And so, I'm reminded of the old saw that says, this is the worst system around except for all the other ones, right? So, like, which is the cynical position and which is the realist position? In the work that we have to do with such sometimes daunting odds. Now I'll stop talking because I'm an interloper here anyhow. And I pull for the Steelers.
You're welcome.
No one's an interloper.
But, I mean, this is... Sometimes I wonder, even when we look at, like, social movements, how realistic we are in our expectations, right? Like, America is going to be America until it's not America anymore. And I just think that sometimes we think that we can fix it, and I don't think it's broken. And that's my cynicism. Come here, boy. Look. Say hey, Miles Garvey.
Hi, Miles Garvey.
I'm holding his arm up.
What a great name.
That's his first name. But, like, I just think it's really important for us to acknowledge that, for the most part, I mean, things are the way they are because things are the way they're supposed to be. And if you want something different, then you, second person plural, have to do the different thing to bring it about.
I'm thinking about Paulo Freire and this idea of, are you the subject of history or the object of history? And, probably both are true at the same time. And then if you, how do you accept the situation that you're in or where you're at? But also, how do you think about how you are an actor that affects the story that unfolds? And so it's not really a question, there's certain amount of how you come to think about whatever's happened in the past and in the present is about your lived experience, what you understand, what you see, and also, like, we could talk about how people conceive of American history, and it's not absence of actually some truth, whether people like to pay attention to that truth or not. And so it's not empty of, like, actual facts, right? But how you show up to them, what you do about it, is alive. It's not you're not empty of an agency to try to affect it, but you are tied to the conditions that you show up in and what you have to do with it. So it's an interesting thing around this question of like agency, cynicism, realism, how optimistic to be. But I agree with you in general, Skip. I think I know for myself, I'll speak for myself, like I look at I'm trying to avoid becoming cynical because I really enjoy being more realistic, even though it's really painful. And I think that I can look at being overly idealistic fairly consistently about either what I can accomplish, what a group can accomplish, about what's happening. But I also don't want to lose my joy in what can be accomplished and become become cynical because there are powerful things.
Yeah.
We're missing Natasha and coupons. By the way, for folks paying attention, I did talk to Holly, and she's in on the coupon. She's in on the coupon phenomenon. So for those keeping track,
What is that?
the last 2 days hangouts. Natasha from New York's been joining us, and we've been talking about learning about how to maximize coupon. I don't know coupon mavenness. How do you actually, is the time spent saving coupons worth the financial gaining and the dark the opportunities available to save money?
Got it.
Stop it. Stop it. Beth, I'm so disappointed in you. I just read what you wrote. I'm so disappointed in you.
I'm thinking I'm like bringing conciliation to the whole thing. I'm like, jeez, I can't win. I can quit.
Skip's tough to argue with, Beth. Just gotta tell you straight up, like you.
Don't even try.
He enjoys the fight and the struggle, and if you're looking for reconciliation, that's the wrong game.
You can't reconcile. You can say, you're right, I was mistaken. And then I tell you, yeah, I thought you'd see it my way. But
that's the only option, huh?
Yeah. Nah, we not agreeing to disagree. Yeah.
So you guys coming to the end of this, I'm curious, like coming to the end of this these sessions all week that you've been able to have virtually, like what's the sort of thinking that's coming out of, how are you feeling about the health of our movement based on the conversations that you've been able to have? Are we leaning more toward the cynical, toward the real, toward the idealism? And about the couponing thing is not a total non sequitur because I'm thinking too, it's like, is it worth, the work of tempering our idealism, right? Is that worth the effort that you put in? Just like, is it worth the effort to clip all those coupons for the money that you're going to save? And so, I tend to think that people engaged in movement work, the folks who are new to it, I think they'll get cynical on their own. They'll come around to that quote unquote realistic position, through doing the work, and so that we don't need to have downer sessions in which we remind people to be particularly realistic and cynical. I think more important to continue to engage people and encourage them. It's like, keep trying, even though it doesn't seem like we're making as much progress as we would normally be making. So that's the coaching question, right? Like, how do we motivate the people in our struggle to keep on struggling and to do it as efficiently and effectively as possible?
To answer your last question, I think that's one of the things that I know for me attracted me to IDEA, the fact that IDEA continues to highlight the bright spots. And I think we've tried to mention that or say that every call that we've had, because you hear so much about what's going wrong and what's not working versus what does work and what should be lifted up and what should continue. I think a lot of folks, thanks to social media and us being able to contact people right on the spot and get information and news right on the spot, are frustrated and discouraged, and people are attracted to the negative and to the bad. So that's usually what people are focused on. But I think in the midst of all of that, I know for me, just going back to you bringing up the what's going on in Ferguson. What a lot of people aren't realizing is what's going on there is nothing new. It's been going on for years. And a lot of the images and reflections that we see are a lot of the same images and reflections we saw 50 years ago. Especially with the people talking about the police tanks. Okay, when they did the Children's March in Alabama, they had police tanks. So you have things like that, and it's like to me it's unfortunate how history is repeating itself and how we aren't seeming to to me, I don't feel like we are learning from it. I think I don't know, and I know for me, like, because I'm a millennial as well, one of the older millennials, but I think a lot of us are like, okay, let's do this, but not thinking about what the next steps are, what the repercussions are, and actually planning out strategies to move forward. So it's a lot. I know for me, I stayed off of Facebook for the past couple of weeks because it gets depressing. I have a 6-year-old son, but it's also a reality. So it's just a lot, and we try to analyze and match theories to what's going on, but I don't know. I don't really have an answer. I mean,
sure.
Because another thing, okay, now I'm on my rant. I'm not going to go for too long because it is one-on-one. But, people, everyone, we as citizens of the United States, a lot of us have been groomed to always feel like it is about us individually versus thinking about the collective. And I say that because, for me, I disagree with what's going on, but for somebody else, for another reason, they may not. And you think about what's going on in Gaza and, things like that. I'm not necessarily in these places or at these places. I can have my opinion about it, but oftentimes some of us aren't able to evaluate or measure what makes sense to share and what makes sense to not share, and thinking about and being empathetic of other people's feelings and thoughts. Because we have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, but at the same time, when is it not okay, and when is it okay? It's kind of like it's such an imbalance, and I know for me, I struggle with how to express certain things and when to share how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking about certain things. Because you never know when the right time is. And that's all I have to say for right now. But we can talk offline more, Beth.
Thank you, Crystal. What you asked, Beth, is a huge question that will have to live incomplete, but I think probably hits at the touchstone of something that we do have a time later this afternoon that's a kind of growing ourselves kind of wrap up time, and this might be well placed as a kind of, what's our take about where things are? How are we making sense of what's going on? And, how does that fit with ourselves? It feels like this is like the beginning of that conversation and not new, as Crystal says, and also alive. So.
Okay.
But this gives us something to continue to think about and talk about. And this is actually our last open air hangout for camp. Bummer. But we will be having more open air hangouts over the course of the year. And Beth and Heath, you all are, more than welcome to join us for those. And that schedule will be available soon, probably within the next couple of days to a week. For those of you who are watching us live, thanks for joining us. We do have a few viewers. We will continue on with our Idea Camp sessions this afternoon at 5 o'clock Eastern. If you're having trouble logging in or viewing, feel free to send an email to cmadison@democraticeducation.org. We hope everyone has a good rest of the day.